Morning, everybody. Hopefully you haven't got the top of my head, which I think you did have only the top of Jill's head. So hopefully you haven't got the top of mine. Oh, and this is what we're going to cover today. We're going to cover what's been happening with government guidance, leisure related, and some general bits as well. There's been an awful lot happening in the industry, so we've got lots to get through on there. And then our other developments, bits and pieces that we've heard, what we're doing for everybody, and then we're going to go into questions and answers. So please don't forget to put your questions either on the chat or ping an email to info@rightdirection. And I'm going to hand you over to Ian. Where's your mouse? No, it's here. Right, over to Ian.
Right. Hi, everybody. As Caroline just said, there is an awful lot that's changed. And just as a reminder, I think as we get towards, hopefully, some confirmation from government about when we're able to open, the key factors we're concentrating on is clearly to make sure we're operating a safe venue, but also to give confidence to our customers and to our staff returning that what we're doing is going to meet their expectations and provide them with a safe and enjoyable venue to come and take part in exercise in. Many of you have picked these up. The COVID alert has been dropped, which is great news. Let's hope it continues that way and continues to fall. The NHS tracking device, which everybody had some hope on, that would give a little bit more freedom and a bit more knowledge to help save the second spike occurring, looks like it's been delayed. I think I knew that Android didn't necessarily work with Apple, but it took them time to get there. Let's hope that their second attempt has come up with something. The next point, test and trace. Now, this is quite significant, and I think you need to look at the risk assessments and your own pandemic management procedures that we might have already sent out, in that during the week, test and trace guidance came out from government, which talked about employers' responsibility if you're notified that you have more than one outbreak linked to your or case linked to your workplace. And you have a responsibility to contact your local health protection team in that regard when they come out and look at your procedures and see what's going on. When you get these, you'll be able to click on the link and download that advice. Within that advice is a postcode data link where you enter your postcode, and it provides you with the address, telephone number and email contacts for that local health protection team. So it's something that's very important within your procedures that you put in and know what to do if you have an outbreak linked to your site. So that's something you do need to look on. Obviously, there was good news about the dexamethasone drug, which is an immunosuppressant, which given to people too early on is no good at all, but given to them when they're seriously ill has clearly been proved to reduce the mortality rates of people on ventilators and in the latter stages of requiring oxygen before going on to ventilators. So that's great news, and let's hope they can continue to find solutions like that which will continue to reduce the death rate. Schools all back, will be back in September. It'd be interesting to see how they manage that and what guidance comes out with that. Clearly there was the debacle over the school meal vouchers, which hopefully there's been a good outcome from. Codes of practice for commercial properties came out. That's another issue which certainly for the operators of small gyms, the ones that rely on leases, it's something worth looking at. It's placing the burden of responsibility as much on the landlord to negotiate to find amicable solutions and stop evictions occurring. So that's something that I'm sure our private gyms will be interested in looking at to make sure they know what the position is relating to commercial rents of properties. We'll find out hopefully tomorrow what they're saying about the 2 metre distancing, although I think the reporting has been quite nuanced from government advice in that if they do reduce it, it will come with caveats. So it'll be whatever caveats and to how we live with those if they do reduce the 2 metre guidance. Clearly at the moment there is still scientific evidence that the 2 metres is 10 times safer than 1 metre, so it will be interesting to see what they come up with. And there's been hints all week regarding certainly the hospitality sector being able to reopen from the 4th of July. Less strong hints about the leisure sector, but let's keep our fingers crossed that it's going to remain positive. So next slide. Again, there's more information coming out. RLSS is running a series of webinars which you can get on, and you can pick up the recordings of those. So even if you've missed them, you can go back and pick those up. For aqua parks, there was specific operator guidance issued via the RLSS, which is important. Swim England have published their COVID-19 guidance documents, and again you can pick those up and you can go back over the webinar that they issued that's recorded onto their website. UK Active, they're similarly hosting reopening webinars starting this week. UK Active Fit Together campaign continues to roll. Simsbury continue to update their websites with national governing bodies. A new one that appeared on the scene, the London Sports National have provided a link with all national governing body guidance in chronological order as they came out. So that one that we found easy to use and hopefully you might find helpful. And Sport England current guidance, including funding, there's more advice on that one. Next slide. The Activity Alliance also produced a document on reopening activities, and it was much a request for you that in reopening we don't inadvertently exclude people from our facilities. It's vital that we continue to run our remit of being an inclusive industry, one that wants to welcome people in with a range of disabilities. And just remember, when you're putting systems in place, that you aren't inadvertently making it not accessible. More than ever, we know from the stats that people with disabilities are far more vulnerable to this virus, and we need to help keep them fit and healthy and give them opportunities to exercise if we're going to beat this in the long term. So please make sure you download that. Look to make sure you haven't inadvertently disabled people by your systems that you're putting in place to try and enable other people to come in and use the facilities through this horrible time. Okay, next slide. So again, what changed? QTAG also issued some very clear guidance, certainly for those sites who mothballed their sites. There's good information about refilling, length of times to reheat. But please remember, if you did do that or you stopped testing, you dropped the heat, it is going to take you time to get your pools back up. They also recommend that you don't start lifeguard training in your pools and competency testments until you've had that clear microbiological test. So it could take you a few weeks to get that done. So if you are hoping to open on the 4th and you haven't started these processes, you need to rapidly start thinking about how you're going to get your pools back in use promptly. Next slide, please, Caroline. Okay, so visitors and staff's experience on returning to work. We are hearing from a number of operators that staff, when they're being given their back to work sort of consultation, are expressing a desire that they don't return. They're either not confident or for some reason they're enjoying furlough. But I think it's up to you through your consultation processes and showing them what's been done to regain their confidence to come back in. As an industry, if we do reopen, if you haven't got the staff to open and we haven't got staff there helping the industry get back on its feet, they need to understand that potentially the businesses will fold, or some businesses will. So it's vitally important that you reassure staff through the processes you've done, through showing them that for those you are taking into account people who have got reasons why they shouldn't return, that systems are being put in place to try and help them. So you need to talk to your HR specialists, what you need to do, perhaps what processes you need to put in place to make sure you don't fall foul of anything. But overall, you need to demonstrate and encourage the staff that they should have confidence to come back in. And I refer back to the clinic. We ran Clinic 8 on that. Make sure visitors and contractors sign in. We've been out on site quite a lot over the last few weeks, visiting various sites. And actually I'm at a venue today which I've got to applaud for the systems they've put in place. And as an exemplar of what I would hope to expect as a customer coming in, they've gone well overboard in terms of some of the processes they've put in place. Am I allowed to say? Yeah, and that I'm at Wyndham Leisure Centre in South Norfolk. So they've got some systems which to me look very robust and would certainly give me confidence to come back and want to exercise within them. Having said that, not one of the sites we've been into have ever challenged me or any of my colleagues on re-entering as to whether we've had symptoms, whether we've been contacted by track and trace. Now, as an industry, if we're going to take this seriously and demonstrate how seriously we are taking it, these processes need to start now. You need to get a mindset that says, as people come in, whoever they are, whether you know them, whether you don't know them, they need to be asked to confirm to you that they have not had symptoms, not been with anyone who's had symptoms, or haven't been contacted by track and trace not to come into work. If we're going to gain the confidence of people, it starts there. We know that several local authorities have been handed back already, had their contracts handed back from contractors, and sadly we know of a few private gyms that have already taken the decision that they don't believe they will be able to weather the storm. So it's vitally important where we can, staff come back and start regenerating the money that we need to survive. Next slide, please. Okay, a few tips. We talked about cleaning. It's vital to make sure in terms of this staff and customer confidence that they see that the levels of cleanliness have been increased. We know as an industry we haven't perhaps been as good as we could have been in the past, but I think you need to set a new level of which you're going to expect staff to deliver on, and that will help give them and customer confidence. Things to check. We know as people have gone back in, they found silly things like their card machines, they work on batteries, have gone flat. So if you're hoping that you'll be reopening on the 4th and people will be coming in to pay by contactless payment, you might be in for a shock if you find your card payment machines aren't working. You need to check them. Other equipment such as fitness machines sometimes are battery operated as well, so you need to make sure they're run for a period of time and checked. And think about other battery operated systems, your two-way radios, your AEDs, to make sure that everything will function as you hope. It's training staff in having uncomfortable conversations with customers, putting a sign at the front that says please don't come in if you have symptoms. If somebody says, oh, I feel I've got a temperature, how is the person going to genuinely say to them without getting into conflict, I'm sorry, you can't come in? I know of a site, I got some feedback from a David Lloyd site that is offering just outdoor classes at the moment, and they've had some terrible conversations with those members coming in where they're saying, oh, why can't I book back-to-back spin classes? Why can't I use the pool yet? And are getting very difficult with them. And you need to give your staff the confidence and the scripts and the training to be able to manage those situations without causing too much angst amongst your users and other users that might be around them at the time. So to think about how you're going to deal with customers. Enforcing rules which customers find uncomfortable, for example, the beach ready ones, you need to have thought through and practiced with them so that you can see how you're going to make them work. You just go back a page, sorry. Queuing in the rain. Today the site I've been at, it's lovely and sunny outside. They've got a wonderful queuing system out in the car park, and the conversation we've had with them this morning is if we had the downpours that certainly London experienced last week, how are they going to manage those events? And it's something that's worth thinking about as how that will do. Certainly if the queuing distances of 2 meters is reduced, they will be able to get people under a canopy. And hopefully by next week, we'll be able to get you some more information of the experience of other places as they begin opening. And certainly Ireland have given the nod that gyms can reopen from the 29th. So we'll be watching that space. Okay, next slide. So let's hope it is the 4th. Are you prepared? Have you got your signage in place? Has your deep cleaning been organised, or the cleaning to make sure you up the standards so that people have got confidence when they're coming in? Have you got supplies, pool chemicals arranged? It's all right the pool been running, but once you've got people in it, your level of chemical use will go up. So if your supplies are low, you need to get your orders in now. If you are going to offer food and drink, are you got stocks to be able to do that? Or did you give everything away as you shut down to food banks so that you didn't end up with out-of-date stock? Is your marketing material ready? Is your IT up to it? Is your booking online payment systems being created and customers being given clear information on websites and being asked to sign disclaimers as part of their payment process to say they've not been contacted by track and trace or any symptoms? For those that have got furloughed staff, have you been in contact with them, telling them when at short notice they might be unfurloughed and that shifts are going to work? And how are you going to manage that back to work consultation if you haven't yet already started it? You need to be thinking that through and making sure that you've got that planned in. And just to make sure, I think this was one of the very first clinics we started on, is all your statutory compliance and inspection up to date? You need to make sure and go back over that to ensure that it's there. Next slide. So, is that me still? Or is that you, Caroline? You're muted, Caroline. I think that's you, isn't it, Caroline, or is that my slide? You're muted. Caroline, you're muted.
I'm muting now. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you got it back on the PowerPoint rather than
yeah,
on the
no,
anyway,
we had a bit of a technical issue from the current slide.
Okay.
So 2 seconds, we'll be with you. Is that okay? Can you hear me and see everything? Cool, brilliant. We were trying to do something technical and it went a bit wrong. Thank you, Ian. Thanks for doing that. I was having a really good chat. We've got Whipsnade Zoo about 5 minutes away from our house, and we were having a good chat with one of the guys that works there, and they're getting so much abuse from people who've just turned up. Please, if you are going for a full booking system where people can't just show up for any activity, look at ways that you can get hold of the customers before they hit the reception desks, even if it's signs in the car parks, even if whatever you can do to stop people from getting to the front desk and throwing abuse at the receptionists. So for those of you who have QMSs with us and work closely with us, you will be receiving our mobilisation action plan and pandemic management procedure. For those of you who don't, obviously we've still got the check sheet online that you can use. And what we've done in our pandemic management procedure, which you guys can do if you want to, is just rather than rewriting every procedure that you have, kind of do an addendum to those procedures. So just the changes. Again, we've said in previous clinics, please don't rewrite absolutely everything, just to change a few sentences here and there. Do a document that sits on top of those for now. So we've also issued, and again it's on our website, a safety alert regarding which face masks you need to use. There is some rogue masks that you can get. Please check that you are getting the right masks if you are ordering them. The forms that we've said we would do are available for you on our website. These include the individual consultation forms, signing in and out, and visitors signing in and out. For those of you who've got Right Directions members coming to your sites in the next few weeks, make sure that you've got a visitor signing in sheet following what Ian has just said. Risk assessments are now up to date, and we will be working with some swimming organisations as well to start writing risk assessments for swimming lessons and swimming clubs as well. So they will be going on Stitch in the next week or so. Virtual and on-site pre-opening days, as you've heard from Ian today, he's now out at Wyndham doing an on-site day with those, and we can also do a virtual tour for you. And our phones haven't stopped ringing in the last couple of weeks. We are here for you to ring us if you've got any queries. We'd rather everybody opened safely and successfully, and we didn't have people like Nicola Sturgeon saying that we were a bed of infection. We don't need the likes of her being back she's saying. So please ring us if you do have any queries or you need any help. The website has been updated, and what we are doing is we're putting lots of information on there as and when we get it. So staying with our 4S's, make sure that you are still sanitizing, signing, smiling and spacing. Okay, we've already told you where the clinics are going. We make sure you go online onto our YouTube channel to find the recordings for those staff that you want to hear it. We've had some other bits out and about this week which you'll be able to see. And please note, we have had a couple of issues. We are sending out an awful lot of information to people. Please check that we're not in your junk mail. Please check you haven't got anything from Right Directions, particularly from Jill, or information in your junk mail. And also we did have a problem last week with Stitch with a couple of clients. With 4Global, the developers, the size of the risk assessments through them for well, not quite 24 hours, but for a few hours. So I'd just like to apologise formally to those people who did have those problems. But hopefully everybody is now back up and running, and they did sort the problem out pretty quickly. We will be running live from this Saturday Right Directions training for frontline staff. It will be very leisure specific with quizzes and questions in it. I've put the link is in here for registering for those courses on our website, so that will be live from 5 o'clock today. Again, if you have any queries or issues with that, please give us a ring. The office is open from 8 until 4 or 8:30, 4, about that sort of time. So any time between 8:30 and 4 we're here. Over to questions. Jill, have we got questions?
Yeah, we've got some.
We've got some on here already. So question we've had, which I'm going to hand over to Ian. What should we be doing with our steam room whilst it's not in use? Is there a Legionella risk?
I think the generators probably empty themselves, but you need to consider the length of the feed from wherever it tees off the main supply to the actual generator. Now, if you're going to leave the steam room dormant for a long time, we would suggest that you get a valve put in very close to that tee it off and drain it out for the interim. If you are going to run it periodically to test it through, then it needs to be treated as low flush outlet and probably run weekly. Certainly the steam, once it's been steam generated and gone through, there won't be very much of a risk. You need to get it up to temperature and allow it to run through. I think the rest of it is covered in there on the, but it is this thing about just thinking through the stagnant length of pipe from where it tees off the main to your actual steam generator.
Okay, next question we have a corridor which leads to our change rooms, which is only 1 metre wide. How can we manage social distancing? Ian, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, I can do. Again, the risk of transmission is very low if people are passing by each other. All the guidance is coming out that talks about less than a metre being for longer than a set period of time. So just people passing. But if you've planned your arrival and departure time, hopefully you might not get that. There might be other ways of managing the flow of people through your corridors. Or if there's an alternative fire exit, you could take people out through. Customers to some extent need to be responsible for themselves and apply some common sense in this. And where you've got pinch points, maybe some simple signage might help you control that as well, asking people to respect each other as they pass.
Okay, thanks, Ian. Next question: Do we think so customers should be wearing face masks if social distancing rules come down to a metre?
I think we might find out tomorrow what SAGE and the government have decided upon. The current advice is that where the 2 metre distancing couldn't be maintained for a long period of time, such as public transport, then a mask has to be worn. People just passing narrowly in 2 meters does not fall within that. So we'll wait to see. I think, as I said, tomorrow we will get far more information about what government's thoughts are about the 2 metre distancing, and if they do drop it, what caveats they're going to require to try and maintain the safety, which from the scientific advice is quite clear at the moment. It's still supposedly 10 times safer 2 meters than 1. And we know public and human reaction is probably all of us have been within less than 2 meters. If they reduce it to 1 meter, we're going to probably be less than 1 meter. So let's watch this space.
My friend's daughter's made me some nice flowery face masks in preparation for me needing to wear them. So I should have put one on for a bit of a laugh, but I completely forgot. Yeah, that'll be an interesting one, this one, won't it, Ian?
Yes, certainly will. I don't know, I'm sure they will put caveats in, even if they do reduce it. We won't just go to 1 meter with no caveats in place.
No, absolutely.
I mean, one thing I saw today, which is again Wyndham, I think, as I said, I think they're to some extent exemplars of what we've been talking about for a period of time. They've moved half the sports hall now is their studio, and they've chosen a 3 meter distancing, but the space directly in front of the instructor has been left completely clear. So there's a lot more distance between the instructor shouting out and the people breathing heavily towards the instructor. So I think they have thought through the risk for their members of staff leading it, as well as for their customers, and reduced the risk massively as a result of it.
And Ian, Wyndham have been listening into all of our clinics, so I bet that's quite rewarding for you to see that.
Yeah. It is nice to see the effects of what we've been talking about come to reality.
Yeah.
And they've even thought in the car park, they've taken certain spaces out to get their queuing system in, but they've put back as close as possible to the queuing system a series of DDA bays for people with disabilities. So they haven't forgotten those either. So thumbs up to Wyndham.
Okay. Right, we've got some other questions have come in.
Okay, Ian, over to you. Any update on whether we should do temperature testing of customers and or staff?
I think the guidance remains the same. People that are asymptomatic, they wouldn't have a temperature. People that have got temperature are going to feel ill. It's how confident you are that staff are going to be telling you the truth when they come to work. I think some of our industry suffers with 0 hours contracts and people that are paid by the hour. And for them coming to work, you need to stress on them completely that if they're feeling unwell, they shouldn't come. You need trained people to be able to do these tests and to be able to know when to take more than one. Our belief at the moment is that it's something that is perhaps just a show to gain confidence of people rather than a real control.
Thank you, Ian. Has there been any updates this week on what to do in the event of being contacted due to a customer testing positive to COVID? Obviously, there's the track and trace. I haven't seen any update.
There was a hint over the weekend, and again, this is not policy, it's not proven. There was a hint that for pubs to reopen, one of their caveats with under 1 meter is that they will have to take the contact details of people coming into the pubs. So that if within a block of time someone has been proved, they can go back and contact all those people. So I think it is something that they might be going to put in place. Certainly it came from, I saw it in a news feed, and some of these things are completely spurious. An editor or a journalist has thought they should write something, and some do come from genuine sources. So it wouldn't surprise me. Hopefully with our leisure centres we've got fairly good IT systems, and we'll be able to determine how that works with GDPR. I'm not sure, but I think we need to keep abreast of what information comes out, and clearly if we pick up anything we'll disseminate that.
One of our staffs got a relative that works for one of the big pub chains, big pub chains, and they've been looking at this over the weekend, and they've also been looking at people booking time slots. So thanks to Tim for updating us with that. So time slots might be happening in pubs. You're going to have to drink your pint quickly.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Ian and Caroline. Ian, another question for you. Is there any update on the use of trampoline park foam pits and soft play areas?
I think the straight answer to that is no. There has been no specific guidance relating to that. I think I said in one of the early clinics we did to clean the soft play, I can see being problematic. I went and saw what Jersey were doing on a virtual tour of their trampoline parks. Sadly, they believed they had been told they could open, and they did open, and they were then told actually the advice that they went to open. They were coming up with systems to clean in between each use on their airbags, but I think you would need to, if and when we get the nod, you'd need to be able to reassure yourself through your risk assessments that people landing in the foam pits aren't going to leave a virus off expelled air onto the foam. So at this point in time, no, there is no further advice. I'm sorry.
Okay. Just to cover off, there's quite a few questions in the chat about forms and our procedures. So just to cover off, the return to work forms and the staff and contractors signing in forms are now available on our COVID-19 page on our website for anybody to download. So if you go to our website, click on the COVID-19 page and scroll to the bottom, and there is 3 sections of downloads. So all of our free information, including the clinic presentations, are downloadable at the bottom of that page.
They're all words, so feel free to edit them, change them if you want to, or come back to us with anything you think could be added or changed.
Regarding the pandemic procedure and our mobilisation plan, our revised mobilisation plan, this is available for Right Directions clients only. I'm afraid, we feel that our clients who are paying our health and safety support should get these procedures, and they will be emailed out to everybody this afternoon. So please bear in mind what Caroline said earlier. We're having a few issues with info@Right Directions email and my email address. They're either being blocked or people are finding information in the junk email. So if you haven't got those procedures by close of play tonight, please get in touch with us if you are a Right Directions client.
Any other questions?
Yes, there's quite a few here. Is there any advice and guidance on social distancing measures for the future opening of theatres, museums and community systems, Ian?
Yeah, I think that centres. Again, no, there isn't. I did listen to quite an interesting BBC 4 interview with Andrew Lloyd Webber at the weekend, where he was talking about putting silver iron door handles on everywhere because apparently that kills it somehow. And also fogging his theatres every in between shows or every month, because this is this microbial spray that some people are advocating keeps much longer active protection against viruses. Personally, I can't see how it works, and I'd love to see the science and the proof behind that before I would ever advocate it. I think sadly for theatres, it's a place of mass gathering. Until we've got vaccines in place, I think we could be a long way off before we see that. But there has been no guidance. I think museums and community centres, let's hope that comes out with the next string of information that we're expecting this weekend, where we hope we will be included in it. I can't see much difference between ourselves and those other bodies. Are we still there? Next question, Jill. Oh, I think we've lost Right Directions. While they're coming back online, because I think we've lost Jill and Caroline, I see one or two other questions came in on the chat while they disappeared. there was somebody had asked again about spacing out. Will we end up respacing gym equipment to 1 metre rather than 2? I think again this is speculation, and ministers might be speculating on that. Personally, I think we need to look at the science. Certainly, somebody running is going to be exhaling air far further than somebody who is doing a standing exercise class or a yoga. I think within your own risk assessments, you need to take those views. But there is certainly no guidance yet, and I think that's speculation about what ministers might or might not have said over the weekend.
Sorry, guys, our internet dropped out for a second then. Just back to the theatre question, I've had an email from our local Cineworld. They are fairly adamant that they're opening to the public on the 11th of July. How they know, they must have a backhander with somebody, and they are allowing. You've got to book in advance. You can't show up on the day and book. And they are putting people who live together can sit together, and then they are automatically, their booking system is automatically putting space between bookings. So that's quite interesting that they've obviously got the technology to be able to do that. And it also says there is going to be procedures for where you get popcorn and all the rest of it. So
I can see that for cinemas. Half the time you go and the cinema's half empty anyway, other than the big blockbuster releases where they will just have to extend those over time. But theatres do rely heavily on having packed audiences for the sustainability side of it. And unless you can really come up with ways, but as you say, Caroline, I think they are being speculative about their thought processes on when, because I think from a risk viewpoint, we'll be interested to see what Sage's viewpoint is on it, and government's advice that comes back.
My boys were over the moon. I think it's one of the things they've really missed was going to watch a good film.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a question on training, on our online training. So with the online training, do individuals have to register, or can you register on their behalf? You will be able to register on their behalf. So when the link comes out later, you can go in and either book as an individual, or you can register as a block booking. What you will need is the delegate's first name, surname, and an email address for the link to the training to be sent to them. So you can book for individuals or for groups. So another question for you, Ian. Are you aware of any guidance for pole vaulting, high jump landing beds or long jump pits? England Athletics have said these activities can open outdoors, but do not. But there is no guidance on how to clean them.
I'm not sure whether the athletics, whether English athletics have issued anything as of yet. Certainly it's something we will look at to see whether we can find. It is outdoors. I think clearly if it's one person training on one piece, then the cleaning only probably needs to take place in between. As I said, I saw a quite inventive method that somebody was using for an airbag, where they'd got an impregnated mop that they were mopping the landing zone in between each use on a long pole. So you might be able to do things as simply as that if it's more than one person training on a bed at any one time.
And I take it we're also saying that let's clean the customer rather than clean the...
Absolutely.
So big dollop of hand sanitizer before they go in, and checking that they haven't had any symptoms.
I'm not sure how that helps their grip on the pole, but that's for them to work out.
No. Long before, so the hands are nice and dry. Please, I don't want to be done for someone sliding down a pole and dying at the bottom. Oh my God, that'd be horrendous. Okay, right, next question.
We've only got one more question left, Ian. And this is, if we have been flushing buildings' water systems regularly during lockdown, do we need to disinfect, pasteurise the water system before we open via a contractor?
I think if you can genuinely demonstrate to yourself that over the period of the week you've flushed the entire content of your cold water storage and your hot water cylinders, so you've kept the whole thing moving, then you probably don't. If you've only been doing just a few cursory taps once a week and not making sure you're getting a good turnover of water, then perhaps you do.
Perfect. Brilliant.
And I think I'm just checking the email box just to make sure that nothing's here, and I don't think there is. I'm just going to go back to the chat because I think we've probably come to the end of the questions and answers.
So before we go, please book your space for next week. Obviously next week potentially is going to be a really big week for everybody, and you're probably going to have an awful lot of questions next week. So please make sure you book on, and as we've said every single time, we're here to help. Please give us a ring or email us, and we're here to help. So I think that's us. One last thing, if you haven't got any signage yet, please make sure you do. Remember not to, I did speak to a client the other day who hadn't actually sat in on the clinics and has spent thousands of pounds on 2 metre signage. Please, before you buy your 2 metre signage, just make sure it just says keep distance. So yeah, that's a lot of money that they're going to have to I don't know, going to have to get some Tipex or something, paint to try and get rid of the number 2s and change them to 1s or 1.5s. I think that's it from all of us. As always, thank you very much, Ian, and thanks to the Right Directions team for helping out with the guidance and keeping us all in the loop. So thank you ever so much to everybody, and a big thank you to all of you for coming and listening to us. Hopefully you found today useful, and we'll see you all next week. Ian, is there anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think that's it. Let's just keep our fingers crossed we get some good news next week.